Welcome to Bear Archery's Hunting 101 podcast, where hunters new and old come to learn and find inspiration from stories of hunts gone by. Everyone is welcome to enjoy the outdoor way of life, and there is no better time to start than right now. So let's head into the great outdoors with your host, Dylan Ray.
Welcome to Bear Archery's Hunting 101 podcast. I've got a special guest, a friend of mine, and a familiar voice, Mr. Tom Clum from Rocky Mountain Specialty Gear. Tom, how are you, man?
I'm doing good, Dylan. Hope you're doing well, too. Thank you, man.
Yes, sir. Are you staying busy in the shop?
It is just hit the time of year where we start hopping. Yeah, I'm sure every archery shop in the West anyway, because our hunting seasons are mostly September. July and August is our time to get slammed. So we just entered that period, so we're hopping.
Well, that's good. That's good for you. Good news.
It is, yes. If it doesn't happen, we're in trouble.
Now, Tom is a special guest because Tom is my personal kind of recurve guru, my coach. I consider him. I'm the one that bugs him with constant questions and stupid questions probably most of the time. But so I'm glad he's always there to help me. But I do want to talk through some traditional shooting questions, but then I also want to get into kind of how that ties in with compound shooting, because here's what I've noticed. And I had somebody call me and they said, "Hey, have you noticed that since you started shooting a recurve, you're way better with your compound?"
Mm-hmm.
And I said, yes. And they were like, well, where's the correlation with that? And I said, well, this is just my opinion. You can tell me if I'm right or wrong. I said, could I have gotten better? Could I have accomplished the same thing with my compound without going to a recurve? Yes. But what happened when I switched to a recurve was it forced me into thinking through every aspect of my shot. So now when I switch back to my compound, again, I'm thinking about every aspect of my shot. And so it's recreated my shot even with my compound. Now, could I have done that without switching to a recurve? Yes. But switching to a recurve forced me to do it. So is there any truth behind that?
Yeah, and especially from this point of view, when you're shooting a recurve, you're under 100% of the weight of that bow. When you're, at holding position. When you're shooting a compound, you're under 20% of the weight of that bow. So you really have to learn to develop better body positions, better skeletal alignment with a recurve than with a compound. And it's a feel thing. It gets to be a feel thing that no doubt translates when you come to holding in your compound. Now you build a better holding position and you build better skeletal alignment that you didn't quite need before. But what you notice is your pin float settles because you're simply in better body positions. You're putting more of the weight of the bow on your skeletal structure as opposed to your muscular system. And there's a better, calmer state of mind when you improve that position, even with a compound, even under just 20% of the weight of the bow. So, thinking about this before, because everybody that always wanted a recurve lesson, but planned on primarily hunting with their compound bow, have asked me, like, is this going to screw up my compound shooting? And every time it's an unequivocal no. This will absolutely help your compound shooting. And that has been the case that's reported back to me every single time. Not once has it been otherwise.
I'll say this, though, and this might just be because of my small brain mentality. But I can't, I just don't have the mental capacity, or maybe it's the time to put in to being effective with my recurve and my compound. So for me, when switching to the recurve, it took all of me. Like it took,
yes.
If I'm going out to shoot, I can't grab my compound. I have to grab the recurve just because it forces me to have that daily practice. It forces me to have a strict regimen. And then I just don't have I don't know if it's mental capacity or time capacity to switch back between the two. So somebody asked me, they said, are you moving to traditional only? And I said, no, absolutely not. But for the next, however long, for the far foreseeable future, I have to. Because I have to force myself into using that. And I have to, it takes all of me at this time to be effective with it.
No, I completely agree. But you've also noticed you pick up your compound and you're pretty much money. I bet.
Yeah, that's why I don't like shooting
it. Yeah, because like we talked about before, you hit it and okay, you expect it to, you miss, you're aggravated. With the compound, with the recurve, you miss. Okay, I got to work a little bit more, and you hit it, and it feels great. that comparison. You're into that phase completely now.
Yeah,
There's a giant satisfaction level when you can put one in there with the recurve. It
absolutely there is.
took more work to get to that place. And that's not being arrogant or calling anything out, because everything's great in archery. I love, you know, immersing in the entire sport of archery. But it's true. It's just simply true. There's a little bit more of accomplishment to put them in there with a recurve. It takes a little more knowledge. Yeah. When you get instruction with a recurve, it's particularly true that you're going to shoot your compound better. If you treat a recurve as something you want back to your face and touch and go, maybe not. But if you're actually receiving good coaching in a recurve, it absolutely will help your compound shooting.
And so I've got 6 Delta McKenzie targets in the backyard, and
Nice.
they're spread out from 10 to 35 yards.
Mm-hmm.
And I can go out there and shoot for hours and have fun with my recurve.
Yes.
But I go out there and shoot 6 arrows and I hit them all in the money spot with the compound. I'm like, well, that was fun. Now it's time to just go inside, I guess, because I'm just done shooting. I made 6 shots on 6 animals and they're all dead, and so it's like, well, that was fun. But I'll tell you, and I don't know if I got to share this with you yet. And I told him I would preference this every time that I ever told this story. I now have a drive to be good with a recurve. I was on the phone with John Dudley, and we were talking about my switch to a recurve, and he said, and I quote, "I like accuracy." Now, what John didn't mean is that you can't be accurate with a recurve. What John did mean is that he can't be accurate with a recurve.
Okay.
So John is by no means putting down recurve shooters. Let me make that very clear, because he posts pictures of guys shooting recurves and stuff. And so don't start sending me a bunch of hate emails, people, that John Dudley is a traditional hater. He's not. But what he meant by that was that he can't be effective as he wants to be with a recurve. So that is now my driving force to shooting a recurve, because I'm like, well, John Dudley says you can't be accurate with it, so I'm going to sting and show John Dudley. Again, I know what he meant when he said that.
Yeah.
But in my mind, it's like that's my drive, is time to prove Mr. Dudley wrong.
Well, and to me, I'm like, looking at a guy with that amount of intelligence and that skill level and that dedication to archery. My gosh, would he make an awesome recurve shooter eventually? And probably not
He
that
would.
much time. But you have to have an interest in it. You have to have a drive for it. And he just doesn't. And that's fine. We all like what we like, But my goodness, could he get good? Right? A guy
Yeah,
like that.
absolutely he could.
He apply what he does with a compound of the recurve. Oh my goodness. The guy could be
But then
really
he
hard
make
to
the
beat.
rest of us mad. So
Yes, exactly. And then
we'll just let him stick to the compound, so it doesn't make us mad.
doesn't make us feel bad about ourselves.
Yeah. Now, before we move on,
Yeah.
I do got to give a quick thank you to my friends over at Selway Archery. Those guys are absolutely phenomenal. Do you use Selway?
Oh, buddy. And I love the Kohlhoffers. Salt of the earth, fine people. Just
They
great
are
bunch of folks. The kind of people you like to support with your business too. Absolutely.
They are fantastic, and they just released. So I can't say they just released. It hasn't released yet, but they have just. I've gotten a sneak peek of it, but they just built a Pope and Young quiver, and it's got Pope and Young branding all over it. It looks fantastic. It is absolutely incredible. I got the picture of it, and it's with the new Pope and Young branding, which will be released a week from today. A week from the day this episode airs at our convention in Reno. So stay tuned for that, because Pope and Young is unveiling a whole new face of Pope and Young. So stay tuned for that. But Selway, my friends at Selway, have built a Pope and Young quiver, and it's branded with our new logos and everything, and it looks fantastic. So guys, you have to check out my friends at Selway. And just like Tom said, they're a great group of people to support, no matter what, even if they didn't make the best quivers that you could buy. So guys, go check out Selway, because they have a quiver for everyone. So go check them out, because those guys are just phenomenal. So, Tom, quick question.
Yeah, buddy.
I recently, and this is my most recent, I need Tom Clum's help moment.
Okay.
I called you and I told you I was experiencing incredible middle finger pain when shooting.
Uh-huh.
And it wouldn't go away. I was getting like an incredible callus behind the first knuckle, and the whole front of my fingertip was just numb all the time, and it wasn't going away anymore. Used to, it would be like I'd stop shooting for 10 minutes and it was gone. But it had become a constant issue. So I called you and I said, I need help. You said, switch to a finger tab. So that's what I did. Switch to a finger tab. Now, I want to ask you, before telling you kind of what's happened to me, what about switching to a finger tab will change what about your shot will change when switching to a finger tab?
It shouldn't be anything about your shot should change. But a finger tab is definitely, if you're hanging that middle finger, which I suspect you were doing, there were some other things I told you to do too, like stiffen your hook, which is counterintuitive as all get out, right? But it's going to distribute the tension between the fingers a little better. And shooting gloves can get a little sticky because they get real grooves worn into them. So it was kind of, I think I told you, have you ever seen a high-end target shooter, let alone target shooters at all, ever use a glove?
No.
And you said, no. Well, there's a little bit of a reason there. So, yeah, you're going to get better distribution of the string tension where you want it. You're not likely to hang up a finger. You can put more pressure on a finger than you should be, like hanging a bottom finger, and you're going to wear out your bottom finger. Common. I mentioned it because it's common, but it's going to be slicker, smoother, and better. Have you continued to have problems with your tab? I can't wait to hear.
I haven't got to shoot enough. I had to travel for some mountain archery fest events, and it's been raining for like 4 weeks here in Kansas, nonstop, and so I haven't got to shoot as much as I want. But no, I have not had the same problems. Now, again, with the glove, I had gotten to the point where I was shooting 100 arrows a day, and I just haven't got to put that time in with a tab yet. So I'm going to say no. But also, I noticed that my point on changed dramatically, and I don't know why.
So your point on changed. Did it change further? Did it move back?
Yes.
All right. So your trajectory path flattened out a bit, and so you're getting more arrow speed, right?
Yes.
So an obvious additional advantage to that tab, right? Slicker surface, better distribution of pressure between your fingers. Obviously, you want any trajectory you can get. So positive change overall for sure, let alone finger soreness.
Correct.
And finger soreness, because you haven't had an arrow count yet, is kind of to be determined. But an absolute benefit so far.
Yeah. And I didn't. I'll tell you what happened. My back field gets a little swampy when it rains, and by swampy I mean ankle deep water. And
swampy.
And I go and shoot at, and I shoot at a 20-yard deer, and I sail it over. This is my first shot with a tab, and so I sail it over its back, and I'm like, man, this thing sucks. Like, I hate this thing already. And so I go out there, and I'm like wading through water trying to find my arrow, and I was like, well, the shot felt really good, and left to right I was really good.
Yeah.
And so
nice.
I just held my point on lower and started pinning it right in there at 20, and I'm like, well, that works, I guess. And so I had shot it, and again, I haven't got to put in a lot of repetition with the tab yet. But yesterday, I pulled out the glove again and put it back on, and I did shoot a lot better with the glove.
Okay.
But I think that's just because it's what I know.
And when you say better, you thought your group better?
Yes, I was stacking arrows rather than them being, rather than a pie plate, I was on a cup.
Interesting. Huh. I've got nothing for you. But I will tell you, people develop preferences and a feel. And so that's why there's tabs and gloves. And that's where there's different kinds of tabs.
But I'm still at the point now where I don't know if I shoot better with the glove because it's what I know, or because I'm just going to shoot better with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I suspect it's something a little different. I suspect that when you're running your shots and you're not distracted and you're, like running a shot sequence for mentally hitting all of our marks, we're going to shoot our best, right? And if you're really thinking about that tab sum and you're thinking about the feel, you're really not running your shot. But you put the glove on and you come back into a normal state of mind. I suspect it's more something like that. I can't imagine why a tab would cause you to shoot broader groups. I could think of why it would help you shoot better groups, but not worse groups. Right. So I suspect mentally maybe a little something was going on, but ain't that the fun of it? This stuff is sometimes a little mysterious.
I think I've told you this before, and I know I've said it on the podcast before, but I'm getting kind of mad with a recurve, and not mad because it's harder, but my initial want to switch to a recurve was the simplicity in it.
Yeah,
you pick up a bow and shoot. At least that's what I thought.
Yeah.
And then you talk to dudes like Aaron Schneider, and they dive into their arrow builds, and you're like, okay, I thought you just got to shoot,
Yes.
And so I've become like, I don't know, just overwhelmed with the amount of tune that goes into a recurve, and thought that goes into recurve, and discipline that goes into recurve. And you're right, or I was right. The act of going out and shooting is simpler, but that doesn't mean that the art of shooting a recurve is simpler, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's more pure form and less, a physical tool with a lot of literal mechanical parts. And there are a lot of added steps, so to speak, with a compound. I was talking to Dick Tone, former Olympic coach, really famous guy in the archery world. And Dick hit an age where he had to shoot a compound, physically had to shoot the compound. And it was really fun listening to a guy, a legendary guy like that say, gosh dang it, I hate this compound. There's so much to do. Man, I got to circle the damn peep on the freaking side housing. I got to pick the pin. I got to get this release on the string. Man, it's not with a recurve. I'd slap it on there and I'd just look at something 40 yards and just drill it. And, this is coming from an Olympic coach, by the way, who's just awesome shooter, no matter what kind of archery tool he picks up. And he felt there was a lot more complexity to shooting a compound because of all the manifestations you have to do with the tool itself. If you think of how you mentally run a shot, it's pretty damn similar as far as the mental mechanics of the shot. But now you have this tool where there's a release to hook on, and there's a peep to center with the sight housing, and a bubble to check, and a pin to pick, and stuff like that. So yeah, there's some added complexity into the mental sequence of the compound for sure. So in a way it's more simple, but in a way you have to hit the mechanics better because you're under 100% of the way of the bow.
Right.
Right. So there's a give and take there, but in the end, a bow is a bow, and they should be treated pretty darn similar. Yes, we have a different anchor point. Yes, we got to get a string through fingers. Yes, we have a different aiming method. It might be the arrow sticking out there, which is our single pin sight, instead of this peep and a sight housing and a bubble, et cetera, et cetera. But as far as the physical mechanics of literally shooting the bow, they should be dang near identical.
Yeah. And that's why, again, going back to my statement on, recreating my shot with a recurve made me a better shot with my compound. That's why, because the shot execution really should be pretty close to the same. And that's why, then when I went back, again, it was just that, okay, I've completely recreated my shot. And so now I actually have a shot sequence with my compound rather than just draw back and shoot like I always have.
And after being under 100% of the weight of the bow, you understand the necessity for great alignment, great body positions, great positions at holding good angles, so to speak. And then you still, when you get under 20% of the way of the bow, you still feel that and you improve that. And all of a sudden you get a better pin flow, right? Everything's more stable than it was before.
Absolutely.
So
And that
I think
is,
that addresses most of those changes of improvement when you go back to the compound.
and also, when I went back to my compound, I realized, because I do shoot a wrist strap release, which, then you've got guys saying, well, if you shoot a wrist strap release, there's no way you're actually shooting back tension. And I was always one of the guys saying, no, I do. I execute back tension. But then after shooting a recurve, it was okay. When I went back to the compound, it was okay. I've not been shooting back tension like I should be this entire time.
Yeah, I got it. But you applied back tension at wrist strap release, and all of a sudden everything was better yet.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's 100%. That's 100% what it was, And so I've told guys, and when they've asked, I've told them, 100% honesty. You don't have to switch to a compound to achieve, or to a recurve to achieve that better shot with your compound. It's just the act of forcing yourself to recreate that shot.
Right. But, and then here again, you went to a recurve coach that taught you back tension. If I'm teaching a compound shooter, I'm teaching back tension right off the get-go.
Right.
So not a difference. There's just not a lot of coaches around, unfortunately. There needs to be a whole bunch of John Dudleys out there, or, myself and Rod Jenkins and some other guys that are teaching good recurves. There needs to be a whole bunch more of us. And we're creating that in you, buddy, We're helping pass this information that we've been fortunate enough to learn and get to share with people, and then you're going to be doing a whole lot of that. So we're going to grow the sport that way, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I think that's part of the big obstacles in people wanting to get into shooting a recurve, and that's the fact that there is no. I don't want to say no. I mean, you got guys like yourself and Aaron Schneider and Clay Hayes and guys who put out really good information, but it's just not as readily accessible as finding information to shoot a compound.
Correct. And really, in my generation, I did a little shooting seminar at our high country shoot last weekend, and there's a bunch of little older guys like me, and I asked the question. I said, I bet you all the guys my age, when we started, there literally wasn't real specific instruction on shooting a recurve. And I said, I'll bet you that everybody here my age, 95% of your friends that started with you weren't shooting a recurve within 5 years. And everybody nodded their head because we couldn't get good at it. And there was a few stubborn ones, like us, that stuck with it or found our own way to be accurate and take some animals that stuck with it. But for the most part, the vast majority of people, the waves coming into traditional archery, left it just as quick because they can never become proficient.
Yeah.
But with the addition of all this coaching that's going around now, and myself and some others getting out there, man, it's just not fun if you can't hit the target, and it's great satisfaction when you can with the recurve. Because you've accomplished something. It's a skill set. It's a cool skill set to have for sure.
Yeah, no, and it's something that, and again, I don't want to take anything away from compound shooters, because I promise you I will go back to shooting a compound because I love stretching out to 100 yards. That's fun.
To shoot a compound well is also a heck of a skill set. Absolutely.
It's just a different skill set. And it's something which part of my drive in switching to a recurve was that I can pretty much take anybody for an afternoon and then be ready to go shoot a deer with a compound at 20 yards.
Yeah.
Give me an afternoon. And that's, and you say, no, Dylan, that's crazy. Well, I mean, I just did it with my wife. Give me one afternoon and she's drilling quarters at 20. So I just wanted to find that skill set that not everybody else could have in a day. Now, again, I know, don't start sending me hate emails, people. I know, because I love stretching out a compound to 80, 100, 120. And that's when you get into, you have to shoot 100 shots a day. You have to be disciplined with it. You have to be, but with a recurve, you got to be disciplined at 15, 20, 25. And so that was just my appeal, is that it just takes so much discipline, so much work, so much time and effort on my behalf to be even efficient at 20 yards.
So, and I put it like this: think of the rifle hunter that changes into bow hunting and gets a compound. Man, he just cut his effective range down by huge multiples, right? And then he had to learn a new skill set, and then he had to learn the new hunting methods to get close. Because now you can't just sit on the ridge and, look at something at distance and take your game. But look at the giant leap that guy took as an additional challenge to move from a rifle to a compound bow. So I put it like that. And then there's just one more little step to go to recurve. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you go from a rifle hunter to a compound to a bow hunter. That's a giant leap. And there's one more little leap to a recurve. That's kind of the way I put it.
There absolutely is.
We cut your effective range down in half or to a third again. And so hunting tactics need to change again a bit. And you have another skill set to develop. Yeah. So it's a stair step thing, As hunters, most people started with a rifle in this country probably. And it got easy and they said, okay, I want to try this other thing. And then they saw the great advantages as a bow hunter, and they started taking more game. At least I did when I started bow hunting.
Yeah.
And then the satisfaction level. And then, okay, here's this new challenge. Let's get this stick and string. It doesn't have any of these catching features like the compound. It doesn't determine my draw length for me. I got to do that based off of form, right? And doesn't have a peep and 5 sight pins and. So it's just all cool stuff, man. It depends on what you're like, where you're at the time, and what you enjoy.
Yeah.
Simple as that. And I just love everything to do with this sport, and I'm completely immersed in it. And I have a compound and I shoot it because I want to stay proficient, especially if I'm going to demonstrate a shot for a student. My credibility is on the line, whether I can put one in there or not with compounds. So, and I enjoy shooting it. I just enjoy the shooting the recurve a lot more. That's just my preference. And for me, it's a different level of satisfaction. I get a little more satisfaction out of it.
Yeah. And I think that if you were to give it a shot, most people would find that next level of satisfaction with it. I mean,
I do. Yeah. Particularly if they're getting instruction and get a little bit good at it.
Yeah. Now, have I told you about my hog hunting experience yet?
Not personally, no.
Okay.
I read your story on it, kind of.
So I'm excited to dive into this because I got a lot of hate mail over this. I got a lot of dudes emailing me saying you need to be effective before you shoot an animal, blah blah blah. First off, shut up. Like I understand all of that. That was not the point of the post. The point of the post was not bragging that I missed. The point of the post was being 100% honest and being 100% transparent in the fact that this is a struggle, this is hard, and it takes work, and I got to work at it constantly, and now it's time to work even harder. So if you email me or message me or whatever on social media, you missed the whole point of the post. But I'll say this. We had hunted hard all day long, and I got sick. I don't know if it was a heat stroke. I don't know if it was dehydration. I don't know. But I had began throwing up. And so at that point, I was like, all right, I'm done. Like, let's go home. We gave it our best shot. And my buddy said, look, we've been out here all day long. We've put in like 8 miles and we're going to get 20 yards from the truck and there's going to be a hog there. And I'm like, shut up, dude. So sure enough, we start walking and we get about 40 yards from the truck and there's a hog. And I'm like, gosh, dang it.
Amazing.
Now, this was about a 40-pound hog. So the distance between the vitals and the butt are 4 inches, 5 inches. Yeah. I was still shaking. Like I was just threw up and I was weak and didn't feel well. My body was shaking. I was, I was ready to go home. But this was the only shot I was going to get. And on hogs, I don't care if it's a 10-pound hog or a 200-pound hog, I'm shooting it.
Heck yeah, because they're yummy.
Yeah. So 22 yards away at a 40-pound pig, and I hit it right in the butt.
Yep.
Now, I can make myself feel better. My buddies try to make me feel better. He's like, dude, you really only missed by, 3-4 inches. And on a whitetail, you still kill that animal. Even a 200-pound hog, you still kill that animal.
Yep.
So that's one thing a lot of the dudes, the internet warriors, didn't understand. I'm like, dude, I missed by like a matter of a few inches. I didn't. Anyways, and I also didn't want to make excuses. I didn't even put in the post that I had gotten sick and that I had. The whole point of the post was, look, everybody can miss. Get back to work. Work harder. That was the whole point of the post. And dudes just didn't get that. Now, I really honestly thought I had hog hunted there before, and I had killed 2 hogs with my compound in 2 hours, and so I really honestly thought this trip was going to go a lot different. I thought this was going to go. I was going to go down and kill 2 hogs before lunch with my recurve and feel supremely confident, and just know, okay, I can in fact kill animals with this thing. The hunting was hard. The hunting was difficult, and it just didn't go that way. That's fine. It just didn't happen the way I thought it would happen. So rather than coming home with the mindset of, okay, I just did it, I can do it, it's doable, I came back with the mindset of, I got to stink and work harder. Because
the perfect reaction to that situation.
Because when I go out in my backyard and you got dudes commenting on my post saying, practice in your garden more, blah, 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 whatever. Outside on my targets, I feel supremely confident at 35 yards.
Yeah.
Which that's my point on. But anything under that, I feel supremely confident in.
Yeah.
I just didn't make a good shot, sir, ma'am, whoever was bashing me for not making a good shot on an animal. And to your responses to all the emails I got and all the messages I got of, you don't even feel sorry for the hog, you don't even feel sorry for the pig. Well, first off, they're a nuisance. I mean, they're a nuisance animal that destroy our lands. So, I don't have much heartache because I wounded a hog. But, it's just, that's what chaps my hide. And then I make another post later on and basically was encouraging people to shut up. Like, and not even on my own behalf, but it was actually a post. It was actually a post. I got something sent to me that somebody was bashing hunting, and so it was a post put out that hunters need to support hunters because we have so much outside conflict against us. We need to support each other, whether you're a recurve shooter, a compound shooter, a crossbow shooter, a rifle hunter, a duck hunter, I don't care. Whatever you hunt, we all need to support each other because there's so much outside pushback against us. We need to stand together as a family. Well, then you get the same internet warriors, and they're like, somehow they loop it back to me missing. And they're like, yeah, you do want people to quit bashing you for missing. And I'm like, for real? Like, you missed it. Like, you just missed it. So I don't even know where I'm going with all this other than quit trying to be internet warriors and let's stand together as bow hunters. Because kind of our conversation thus far is, I shoot a recurve, but I'm going to shoot a compound too. And I don't look down on people who do shoot a compound. And I don't care if you shoot Eastons or Victory, or I don't care if you shoot cutthroat broadheads or sick broadheads. I don't care if you shoot, bear archery or Hoyt. I don't care. We need to come together as an archery family. And it's not about, don't put me down because I missed. I know I missed. But more so of, don't put me down because of what I shoot. And I'm not going to put you down because of what you shoot.
Yeah. I'd like to comment on that. You took a shot that you were confident in and you're quite capable 90% of the time of making, right? And that's kind of my test. I'm not going to pull that string back unless I'm pretty damn sure I can put one right in there. And I'm sure you're the same way. And that's the standard for all of us, right? There's one thing for sure, is that we're human beings, and human beings are far from perfect. So we're never, ever, ever, you hunt any time at all, you're never going to be 100% on your shooting. You're going to miss. And then obviously you're going to miss by a little less, and you're going to wound at times, right? And we want to make that as slight a percentage as we possibly can. But I would just invite guys that looked upon that situation harshly, to not be quite so self-righteous. Now, maybe they haven't hunted enough to get enough opportunities or shot at enough animals, or to have that failure that comes to all human beings come to them yet, but they certainly will, and it might revise that self-righteous attitude a bit. But self-righteousness is a really harmful thing to carry on to other people, and to really suffer with ourselves, because that failure is going to come hard sooner or later for you to, I hate to say it, because we're human beings and we're imperfect. So that's the support among the community. Anybody that's an experienced hunter is going to give you that support, because we've all had failures. If you've hunted much time at all, you're going to have failures for sure. And wounds happen. That is an unfortunate byproduct of our sport. I will still say this, that a wound from an arrow cuts cleanly and bleeds cleanly. If it's not in a spot that will kill that animal is going to heal quite quickly from that wound, as opposed to a bullet wound, which causes hydrostatic shock and swelling and lack of free bleeding and all kinds of problems, right? And infection. So I'll defend bow hunting all day from that aspect, as opposed to rifle hunting, because a rifle hunter might say, well, we don't wound. Well, the heck they don't, because there's a whole lot of fellas that outstretch their ability to shoot. And there's a whole lot of fellas that shoot so dang far away that they don't even go check on the animal, and they have no idea they might have put one through the lungs that ran right over the knob and keeled over. So there's an element to hunters, I don't care, choose the weapon, that aren't carrying a lot of ethics. But one thing for sure, I don't care how high your ethic standards are, you're going to have a wound sooner or later if you hunt a lot.
I had never actually, up until last weekend. I'm sorry, not last weekend. It was several weeks ago now. I had never hit an animal with a bow and not killed it. I had hit animals with rifles and not killed them.
Interesting. Yeah, an easier weapon to not make that miss. Yeah.
And so there is no, like you said, there is no, I'm a rifle hunter, I don't do that stuff. Well, I've shot deer with a rifle and it took them a long time to die. And I've shot, and it was a perfect shot. It's just the resilience of an animal. And I've shot deer with a bow and they expire within seconds. So better be careful about that moral standard. And I had told people, and that's something that I had taken pride in. Now, I take more pride in my shot selection than my shooting abilities, but I had never done it braggadocious. I had never said anything. Oh, I'm so much better than you. I've never hit an animal and lost it. But that's something I had said to people before, that I can no longer say. I can no longer say I've never shot a deer with an arrow that I didn't find. Now I've had deer completely duck my arrows and me not touch them.
I want to be able to say that, but you can't. Yeah.
And you know what? Yeah. I'm perfectly fine with to say that now.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, for those bashers out there, I'm going to tell you, karma's a bitch. I've experienced it, man. I had killed 3 elk. Just 1, 2, 3, bam, 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 1 arrow's one. And then I called a big bull into my brother-in-law. This came right in at 17, 18 yards, and he sailed an arrow right over its back. And in my somewhat self-righteous, I've killed 3 elk with 3 arrows self, I said, I can't believe he could miss that shot. Unbelievable, man, the perfect situation. Oh my gosh, what was he thinking? What was he doing? How can you do that? And then proceeded to have myself a missing spree. Karma's a bitch.
That's how it happens.
It did serve me not well to have that kind of attitude, because those, in fact, those, a little bit better shot, those could have been wounds. But you think wounding doesn't happen in nature, and accidents and predators don't put wounds on those animals? We're a predator. We're taking part in this food chain also. And we're doing, as human beings, though, we do carry a lot more responsibility to do it the right way. But by gosh, we're human beings, and we're not going to be perfect every time.
Right.
And we'll learn, hopefully, from every one of those mistakes we do.
And this was.
So anyway, just consider that. Back off a little bit. This is an unfortunate part of the sport. It's a natural part of nature too, and we're going to do everything we can not to have that happen. But I don't care if you hunt long enough; it's surely going to happen, and we surely are going to feel bad about it, and we're going to do everything not to have it happen again. and so, but it is reality, and I appreciate real people. We talk about Instagram groups, and I really like the guy that shows his failures and then talks about how he corrected the failures, and I learned something from his mistakes too. So,
Well,
anywho,
and that was
every miss I've had, every wound I've had, I go 10 ways to Sunday and try to make that not happen again, and work my butt off to not make that mistake again.
Yeah, and that was the entire point I was making with the post. But guys just didn't get it, and this was not supposed to be the point of this podcast, but we get off on tangents, and that's just how it happens. But I just want to encourage everybody to stick together as a hunting community, because I wore a shirt to church the other night, and it was a Three Rivers traditional only shirt, and I had a friend, a good friend, I know he's joking, and he said, "This right here is what we call an elitist," and I said, "No." And he knew, he knows me, I know him, it wasn't like, but I also know that there are people who actually feel that way. And, I'm not a traditional only guy. I'm an archery guy. Shoot anything you want to shoot. My wife shoots a bear legit. If I was truly a elitist and thought that traditional shooters were better than everybody else, then I would give my wife a recurve, but she enjoys shooting a compound. So that's what she shoots. And if she says, "Hey baby, let's go shoot our compounds," I'm going to grab my compound and go shoot with her. I just want us all to stick together as an archery family. Now, before we move on, I do need to give a quick thank you to my friends over at Boning. I just got they just released a new pocket quiver, and it's a phenomenal little quiver. It's a hard case plastic quiver that you can slide in your back pocket and hold 6 arrows perfectly for you at all times. And it's not, the reason I like it over like a leather pocket quiver is because my tips don't bang together. They don't rub together in the quiver. They're all separate. They all have a sleeve they slide into, and so. But also, I'm a huge fan of all the boning products. Their wraps, their veins. I just flexed up a dozen arrows. I wish I had them next to me so I could show you. I just flexed up a dozen arrows with the Fredbear flannel wrap and some red heat veins, and they are just incredible looking. And if you don't know, here's what they did for the Fredbear flannel wrap. They actually took a picture of Fredbear's flannel t-shirt and put it on a wrap. So that's not just like a recreation of Fredbear's flannel. That is, in fact, a picture of his shirt, of his flannel. So just really cool. So they have some incredible Bear Archery and Fredbear branded products, like the Fredbear camo wraps, which is just incredible looking, matches my recurve. And so go check out Boning for their new quiver and for all their arrow building accessories. Tom, what's your hunting plans for this year, my friend?
Hello. Oh man, I'm going to have a good year. Hopefully, I've got a tag in Montana that I drew, and I'm going with the Misty Ranch boys on a filmed hunt up there. And I guess we got some pretty good places to hunt lined up. And then I drew a really good tag that I've been waiting for 3 years in Colorado with my family and one good buddy. And so I've got 2 elk hunts this year for a change. And so I can make up a little time, hopefully. I've got an antelope tag that's in a really primo unit. And I got a bear tag to go along with my elk tag in Colorado. So I got some good stuff coming, man. And then come November, late October, November, I've got a smoking good place in Nebraska to hunt some plains mule deer and look for a big old muley. So this could be an exciting year for me.
Sounds like it.
Way better than that. Yeah, I'm fired up.
Sounds like you're going everywhere.
So I'm shooting a lot.
All with the recurve, I'm assuming.
I'll be a traveling man this year. Oh, of course, yeah. That's my preference. Yeah. I haven't hunted with anything but a recurve since the mid '80s.
I had a guy, and he's a good friend of mine, a good friend of the show, former president of Pope and Young, Jim Willems, who is a traditional guy. And he told me that, if a hunt comes along where he needs a compound for whatever reason, he told a story on a podcast one time where he had a bear tag, and he was going on a bear hunt, and he hurt his shoulder and couldn't pull his recurve back, and so he was forced into taking the compound. And he said, I felt so unprepared, so out of my element. Like And that was good to hear. Like, it was good to hear that you can get to that place where you're so confident with a recurve that going back to a compound, you feel unprepared and unconfident.
Interesting. Yeah.
But he just,
very interesting.
I mean, he's been a recurve guy for, however many years. And so going back to that compound, he's just like, man, I didn't feel ready. I didn't feel prepared because my comfort is in a recurve.
Yeah, I could relate to that a lot.
I've also heard
definitely could relate to that.
Guys like Fred Eichler.
Yeah, I know exactly what I can do with my recurve like that. Yeah.
Guys like Fred Eichler, I mean, he says, he's like, if I want to challenge, I get my compound. And I'm like, what? Like, he's like, yeah, yes. if I want that challenge, I grab a compound.
Interesting. Yeah. No, you do get that comfort level after a bit.
So what's the one?
You know exactly what you can do and what you can't.
And maybe we'll loop this in for any shooting, compound or recurve. What's the one biggest tip you can give somebody to improve their accuracy in archery?
Okay. So the one biggest tip, because it addresses the one biggest problem, and that is to get by, have confidence in letting the subconscious maintain your aim. Don't get over involved in aiming. It's the now moment. It's the trying to capture the perfect aim now. It's the trigger punch. It's the snapshot. It's getting attached, letting the aim trigger the shot, whether it's punching the trigger or letting the string go. It's seeing a good sight picture and settling on it, and then completing your shot correctly. And then changing your conscious control from placing that aim right where it needs to be, and then concluding your shot. Whatever your shot activation movement is, put conscious control into shot activation movement to the follow through. That's the single thing, no matter what your form is the separation of aiming and shot activation. Compound or recurve, doesn't matter the type of, but if you think about it, it's a firearm also. You set the aim, and then the conscious control has to go into your trigger press to make that gun go off as a surprise. So it's a precision shooting thing, no matter what the tool we're using. So if I had to say one thing, that's the drum I beat the loudest, is having confidence in your aim by just kind of letting it go. You have to still look at it. You still have to place a great aim on the target, but you got to let it go, and you got to conclude your shot properly. So that'd be my one tip for the day right there, buddy.
So when aiming, are you looking at the spot in which you want to hit, or are you looking at your tip of your arrow or your pin on it? I mean, that goes for either one.
You were looking at, okay, so either one. An arrow can be, if you look at it, can be like a single pin sight. So in either case, you're putting that pin on the bullseye and you're looking at the bullseye. If you're looking at that pin, you're trying to control that pin. And if you're trying to control that pin, you're not controlling the finish of your shot. You're not activating, you're not moving through your release, or you're not moving through the expansion phase of the shot, which is increasing string tension aimed at the follow through. So in either case, you're putting the point of the arrow where it needs to be, you're putting the pin where it needs to be, and then you're looking at the focal point, you let it go, let the subconscious aim it. Just like when you're driving a car, you're just your subconscious is making all those micro adjustments with the steering wheel while you're thinking about something else. Same thing with an aim. You drive the car down the middle of the lane you want to be in, you look at the middle of the lane, and your brain just keeps it there, and you can think about something else. Same thing with an aim. You put that point where it needs to be, you put that pin where it needs to be, you look past it at the spot you want to hit, and then you let the subconscious drive the car while you consciously conclude your shot properly. There it is. And you need to learn to trust that. And you need to learn it soon if you're not doing it now.
So,
that's the biggest drum of all that I can do.
This is a recurve specific question. So, do you ever consciously open your fingers? Or, I mean...
Yes, but yes, and when I do, it's an error in my shooting. The actual release of the string should be subconscious. I should just be moving that hook right to the string and to follow through. The brain will figure out how to send a signal to the flexors to relax for a fraction of a second. And during that fraction of a second, the string blows through your fingers. We should never if you consciously open your fingers, it's the same exact thing as punching the trigger with a compound.
I got you. So you're not you don't open your hook. Rather your brain will just trigger.
The brain will let it open for you. you never consciously open your hook. You move that hook right through the string to follow through in a very precise, consistent, controlled manner. You build tension in your hook and your string. With back tension, you increase that tension in a very subtle and controlled manner aimed at follow through. And that's it. The brain handles the release of the string.
Now,
it's a very different thing from having a subconscious release or having a conscious release. Conscious release would be opening your fingers,
which is the equivalent to squeezing the trigger,
which is exactly the same as punching the trigger. You're going to lose tension because your mind goes away from back tension into the fingers to release them. And when you're not focusing on back tension, you're going to lose back tension. And that's a collapsing shot. That is a shot with decreasing string pressure. And it's always variable. And then when that happens, when you break the alignment in the back because of the lack of back tension, you break the alignment in the front. So if you're a right-handed archer, it's going to be a right side miss.
That makes sense.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now I know why, like, some shots I'll just have just full weight to the right.
Yeah. It's just a loss in tension. It was probably a now moment. You were looking for that perfect aim, you saw it now. And when your brain went to opening your fingers, it went away from tension, back tension. And so you lost tension. So you lost alignment in the back, then you lost alignment in the front. And I'd invite anybody to point an arrow, hold it very steady, and then move that arrow 1/8 of an inch and see how far a minute of angle takes that arrow off the target. 1/8 of movement at the bow hand, 1/8 inch of movement at the bow hand will equivalent to like an 8 or 12 inch miss at 20 yards. And at 40 yards, you're off a 4x4 bail. Now, when you keep tensions through the string, you keep alignment, and it goes right down the middle.
So I have one more question for you, and then I'll let you go. Maybe, unless this question sparks another question. I know why I shoot better at certain distances with a compound. So with a compound, 60 yards, I shoot really well, and I know the reason why. And I don't want to say it because I'm curious to know if it's the same with a recurve. But when you get to 35 yards, even 40 yards, why is it that my shot is better than, say, 10 or 15?
Okay, because at 10 or 15 with a recurve, that arrow point is way below the target. It's very much less precise of an aim. But when you move back, and obviously you have to elevate the arrow to accommodate the distance, the arrow comes up into your vision and onto the target. Now it's like using a sight pin with a compound. You have a very precise aiming method at that long distance. At that short distance, you have a huge gap. That arrow's pointed way below the target. You don't have that precise sight picture and aiming device. Make sense to you now?
Yes.
Very common. Super common.
I know why. I shouldn't have said shoot better, because obviously that's what my point on is. I knew I would shoot better. But I guess I should say I execute a better shot at that distance. And so my thinking behind it, maybe you can either confirm or deny, my thinking behind it is, at 20 yards or 10 yards even, I have to hold the bow down, in an unnatural position. But then when I get out to 40, 35, the bow is just more up in a natural straight position. So I can execute a shot cleaner, I guess. Which is why with a recurve or a compound, you get to 60 yards and your bow is just level. You don't have to go, you don't have to move down, you don't have to move up. It's just, that's where it's at. But also,
okay, there could be something in that because it's a better structural position. But I have another thing I want to run by you. I suspect at that longer distance, you bring a higher level of determination to the shot to run it correctly. And I suspect that's the biggest reason of all, because sometimes we're at 10 or 20 yards, you'll lay up and you just run through your shot.
Yeah.
But then you're sitting out there at 30 or 40 with your recurve, you're going, okay, I need to run this shot. But I suspect if you brought the same level of determination at 10 yards or 20 yards as you did at 40, you'd shoot much better at 10 or 20.
I also think one thing I think that plays into it is,
that's my opinion.
The compound, you get out to 60, you can no longer focus on your pin. Like you can't. You just got to look through your pin at the target because the target's too far away to focus on both.
Right, which is exactly what you should be doing at 20.
Right, but at 20, you can look at both, you know. And I think it goes the same for
Yeah.
a recurve. You know, at 10 yards, I can pretty well in my peripherals focus on the tip and the target. But at 40, you got to pick one, and so you pick the target, so you shoot better.
Yep.
Well, good. Yep. I'm glad I now know that.
No, I think you're right.
But I do think you're right. I do think that if you were to take the same consideration for every single shot, whether it be 10 or whether it be 50, you would shoot just as well at 10.
Yeah, in the old days before I learned a lot of this stuff, I got to shoot with a lady named Linda Graham, who's an IBO world champ. And I stayed with the Grahams, and they had a 3D course in the backyard. And I noticed that, gosh, when we went to a 10-yard target, her shot timing was exactly like it was at 40 yards. And of course, for me at 10, I just snapped through it and shot it. And I was like, there's a reason why she's not being a world champ. Because she treats every arrow like it has value.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a habit. It's part of, she's acclimated to working that hard and bringing that level of determination to every shot. And that makes her better.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Now, before we go, you know, I've asked this before of you. Fred Bear is big on his field notes. What's one field note you got for us to make me a better hunter?
Okay, so we talked about watching last time. Let's talk about slowing down. I talked about that with Danny. He asked that question. He's like, slowing down on everything. You know, putting more conscious thought to it, moving slower, watching more. If you think you're moving slow on a stock, you might want to think about slowing down even more. You'll push it. You'll find your limit. But when I asked that to my son, who's an exceptional hunter, that was his main thought as a field note. He just slows down in everything, and it gives him more time to think too. And it causes a lot less mistakes. Think about anything in life, whether it's our shot or what we're doing. We try to rush through things, and it doesn't work out very well for us.
That is a phenomenal tip.
It's a pretty general.
Well,
but it's very good. Yeah.
It is general, but a lot of guys miss it. I had one guy tell me, well, when I slow down, I don't see as many animals. And so I worked through this in my mind.
You're going to get close a lot more.
I don't know how to properly articulate it, but here's what I think is when you're moving fast, you're just busting animals out so you see them. And then when you're moving quote unquote slow, you're not moving slow enough. You're just busting them out before you get to them to ever see them. So then if you move...
Yeah, you are going to see less animals. Right. You're going to see less butts going over the hill away from you.
Yes. Yeah.
So yes, you're going to see less animals.
So
a lot less butts going over the hill away from you.
My point I made to the guy was you're slow. Your slow isn't slow enough. So you're still moving fast enough to bust the animals out, but you're not moving fast enough to see them bust out. Now, if you actually go slow, you'll get close to the animals.
The key is to see them first.
Yeah.
That's the whole key if you think about it.
Yeah. So I just told him, I'm like, well, you're
you
slow.
See them before they see you.
Like, your slow isn't slow enough. Like you're going medium, and now that's the worst of all. Yeah. I mean, now you don't even get to see them bust out. Which I hope that makes sense. But also, do you watch Alone, the TV show Alone?
Yeah, I've caught a few episodes now, and I'm trying to catch up because Clay Hayes is on one. And I've only seen the first episode, and I was disappointed not to see more about Clay, and I'm anxious to see the next episode.
Yes. Every Thursday night I've been watching Clay. This is what pisses me off. Last night was a new episode, and they ended the episode on Clay releasing the arrow on a deer. So now I got to wait a whole stinking week to see if he killed the deer or not.
And they left you hanging?
Yes. But he said that. But he said that while he was hunting, he said that. He was like, I have to slow down. Because if I don't, my mind will be racing with everything, and I won't hear the animals. I won't see the animals. He's like, so I have to go, incredibly slow when I'm hunting. And so he talked about that on Alone last night, the art of hunting slow.
Nice.
So
outstanding.
before we
Go
go,
ahead.
let me give a quick thank you to my friends at NZ Campers. They build custom hunting campers out of box trailers, and they are absolutely just phenomenal. So I'm going to have myself a custom-built hunting 101 camper that I'm incredibly excited about. Can't wait to pull it to Colorado and park it outside of RMS. That way I can bug you guys all the time. So, guys, go check out NZ Campers because they are campers built by hunters for hunters with the hunter in mind. So, cool things like coolers built in for meat storage after the harvest. I mean, scent control storage for all your clothes, bow hangers and gun racks built in. Really, really cool. So, go check out NZ Campers. That's ENZY Campers on social media. And I personally can't wait to show you guys my camper. Guys, thank you for listening. Tom, thank you so much for coming on. Guys, you guys have a great week, and get out there and shoot your bow. And quit putting other people's down because of how they shoot their bows.